of the biggest mistakes that I see beginner investors make is overthinking. Overthinking has killed more profits than a bad investment ever will. And I'll reiterate this over and over again if I have to, but it's so important. One of the brightest examples that we can see is real estate and Bitcoin. So if you think about real estate, everybody's always thinking about buying real estate. Everybody's always like, hey, maybe I should buy a house. Maybe I should invest in this. Maybe I should buy that. And then 10 years pass and they're like, man, I thought prices were too high, but I should have invested. And then another example is Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin, everybody and their mom has thought about investing into Bitcoin. It's kind of ridiculous. No matter who you talk to, everybody's like, oh, actually, one of my friends kept telling me to buy it when it was like $5 for a Bitcoin, right? $5 or $100 or $1,000. Remember when we peaked at $1,000, around $1,000, that first big run up? Everybody was freaking out, and then we came back down. Everybody thought about investing, and then they overanalyzed it, and they became paralyzed from all that over-analysis, and they never pulled the trigger. And now they're regretting it. Even though we've recently seen a little bit of a slump, we reached peaks of over $60,000 for one Bitcoin. Imagine even if you invested at the worst time possible at the beginning, maybe around $1,000 or $1,200, and you rode it up to 60K. That's a big return on your investment. And so with investments, it becomes sort of like a game. You can never be 100% accurate. And so with 100% accuracy, it's just very difficult to maintain that, and you're gonna find yourself overanalyzing, overthinking investments, and missing out on a lot of opportunities. Think about how many opportunities you're going to miss out on just because you are overanalyzing and overthinking. And while you take all that time, that investment opportunity is just gonna pass by. One of the most important things that I think as an investor is to just manage risk, number one, and number two, to take opportunities when we see them. Because the only way the statistics are going to work out in your favor is if you actually take the opportunities. Think of it like this. If you consider yourself to be an averagely good investment picker, let's call it that. So 60% of investments that you choose turn out to be profitable. Maybe it's 50%. But we have two ways to manage risk. Number one, if we don't allocate too much capital to each investment opportunity, even if we lose, we don't really care too much, right? Because it's just a small percentage of our portfolio. Number two, we make sure that the payoff from each investment is always going to be significantly more than what we are risking. So if we're risking $10,000, $20,000, we want to make sure that the payout is at least at a minimum 1.5 times that. That's like bare minimum. I would never go below that. Essentially what you want to look for is the ability to generate at least a 1 to 1.5. So if I'm risking $10,000, I want to make sure that I have the potential to make $15,000. Ideally, it's maybe $20,000 or $30,000. If I'm an investor that's not good at choosing good investment opportunities, let's say I was only 30% profitable. So that means that 7 of them failed. If I made 10 investments, 7 of them failed. So if I lost $10,000 on each one, I lost $70,000. So I'm investing on a 1 to 3 basis. I have a payout of $30,000 on each one of these investments. So now, if I have the 3 investments that did work out, my profit is $90,000. So even if I was terribly bad at choosing investment opportunities, I made $90,000, and then the 7 that lost, I lost $70,000, right? So I'm still in net profit. I made $20,000 net. And you have to realize that it's actually very difficult to have a 70% losing ratio, because as long as we do our due diligence, as long as we see a proven track record, as long as we follow a set process and a set formula for how we choose our investment opportunities, we're able to identify decently good investment opportunities. It's fairly easy to find something that, hey, I see this works, I see the process behind it, I see the system, I see why it works, I see a track record of success, I know the owners, I know their philosophy. It seems like a decently good investment. Let's do it. If you just went out there and in general just invested into anything, which I have done a similar strategy where I just try almost everything that sounds decent, right? I wasn't being too picky. With that strategy, I was getting about a 50 to 60% profitability ratio. So let's do the math on that. If we're investing into things that have a 1 to 3 payout, let's say we bump it up to 50. So half of my investments won and half of my investments lost. Let's do the math on that. So 10 investments, again, I'm risking $10,000 on each one. If I lose 5 of them, that means I lost $50,000. And then if I won 5 of them and I made $30,000 on each one of those investments, I made $150,000. If we combine those, the $150,000 profit and the $50,000 loss, I'm net positive $100,000. In general, my portfolio is profitable, and that's a pretty typical thing to see with investors. You're not going to win every investment. Of course, we want to try to get our investment profitability up to like 80 or 90%, and that's very possible. As long as you have access to investment opportunities that have a proven track record, that you know somebody that has invested into it and has made money with it, who's to say that it's not going to continue being profitable? As long as you have that history on the investment, as long as you know the people running it, as long as you believe in them, it's all about execution. In my opinion, your investment profitability should be somewhere up closer to 70, 80, 90%, as long as you're not just blindly investing into things, as long as you're following a set process, you're doing a proper risk analysis, you're analyzing what the likelihood is of the worst case scenario, what the severity of it is, right? I do a whole video on risk management on its own, just how you analyze the risk on an investment. As long as you have the full picture of everything that's going on with that investment, the likelihood of you being profitable increases greatly. So I used very low numbers, 30% profitability, 50% profitability, just to show you that investing is not scary. It's not meant to be scary. You just have to accept that some investments are just going to lose, and that's just how it is. That's how the investment world works. You can never be a perfectionist in the investment world. And I've actually struggled with this because I'm naturally a perfectionist, but when it comes to investing, I have to let that go. I have to let go of that mindset, and I have to separate my self-worth and my image as an investor from each specific investment. So let's say, with that 50-50 profitability, right? If I made a profit on 50% of my investments, I could have potentially lost 5 investments in a row. So what if I got to investment number 1 and I invested and it lost, and I'm like, oh man, this sucks. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's do that. Oh man, lost again. Third one, lost again. Fourth one, lost again. That can wear out on your self-confidence. That can make you a less confident investor. And so by separating my self-worth as an investor, I'm not calculating whether I'm a good investor or a bad investor just based on the performance of one investment. I am looking at my overall portfolio. When all is said and done, when I've made all of my investments, am I net profitable? You cannot tie your self-worth or your value as an investor or your performance as an investor to any one investment. Always look at the larger picture. Always look at the broad portfolio that you're creating as opposed to one investment. Because that means that on a bad day, if I lose an investment, I don't have a bad self-image of myself, and that doesn't cloud my decisions as an investor. And when I have a really good day and I win 5 investments in a row, I don't think that I'm the best investor in the world, because that euphoria can cloud your judgment as an investor, and that can cause you to make poor investment decisions because you start thinking you're invincible. You're like, man, I can't lose. I just won 5 investments in a row. If you won 5 investments in a row and then you started over leveraging and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to go for a 1-to-3 payout. I'm going to go for a 1-to-1, and I'm going to double my investment. Well, that's how you can get in trouble. So anyways, thank you guys for joining this video. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.